Hatred for me now, it's a poison. It's a fire which burns the one who is afflicted with it. And if I am afflicted with this disease called hatred, I am collapsed, I am destroyed, I am heavy, I can't move. And the
How
responsibility is still in front of me. I want, from day one, when I saw my daughters killed, I swore to God and to my daughters, I will never give up. I will never forget. I will never rest till one day I meet them with the big gift. It's the justice for them and that their holy souls and noble blood wasn't waste. It made a difference in others' lives. In order to achieve this, it's not with hatred. I know the wound is big and the scar is large, but I need to be healthy physically, mentally, spiritually. And as Einstein said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balanced, we must keep moving.
Hello, everybody. This is Pascal from Neutrality Studies, and today I have a guest with me who has gone through so much that I honestly don't really know how to introduce him properly. I'm speaking to Izzeldin Abuelaish, who is a Palestinian medical doctor currently residing in Toronto, where he serves as professor of clinical public health and global health at the University of Toronto. Dr. Abuelaish was born in the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza, and after becoming a doctor, he was the first Palestinian from Gaza to hold a staff position in an Israeli hospital. In 2009, he lost 3 daughters and 1 niece when his house was shelled by Israeli forces. He went on to write a book about his tragedy and the tragedy of the Palestinian trauma that he calls I Shall Not Hate, a Gaza doctor's journey on the road to peace and human dignity. Tragedy struck again just a few weeks ago when 22 members of his family were killed in the current genocide of Israel against the Gaza population. Dr. Abuelaish, thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Abuelaish, could we maybe start by just talking about what happened to you? Can you explain a bit more about yourself, about your family, and what you went through over the past years and the past 2 months?
Yeah. My life as a Palestinian refugee, it's a life cycle. It's a continuing life cycle, which is connected to my parents as a Palestinian refugee, where I was born, raised, and lived in Jabalia refugee camp. And my parents were refugees expelled from their homeland in 1948 when they faced the Nakba. And all of the time, I ask the people to think, what do we mean by being a refugee? A refugee is someone who is deprived of his rights or her rights, his dignity, his freedom. He becomes homeless. He becomes naked in this world. So as a Palestinian refugee, I was born, raised in Jabalia refugee camp. I never tasted my childhood. And it's very painful that you feel the abject poverty, the deprivation, the suffering, the hunger, the starvation, the thirst, the darkness, the humiliation, the intimidation. But we as Palestinians and our parents who lost their land, but they didn't lose hope in their children, and they invested to realize one thing, that in this world someone can oppress, can kill, can deprive, can imprison, can demolish, and can kill, but no one can prevent us from dreaming. No one can prevent us from taking responsibility and finding our way. And that's what I learned, that nothing is impossible. So our parents, they found their way in educating us. We have to succeed because no one can take the education from our minds. No one can prevent us from achieving our goals. And education is the biggest weapon to face the atrocities we are facing in this world. So I dreamed as a child to be a medical doctor. I have to work hard day and night, and to work afternoon in every kind of work. Palestinian children, they have to be grown up at the early age to take responsibility. At the age of 7, Palestinian children, they become men to move because we are fighting to survive. And the time you see it in this world, others who are living to fight. And that's what I ask. We are living to live and to give life to others, to share life, to think of others, to work together, because my life is linked to your life. A person to see his humanity in others' person. And that's what we need, to think of others. So I worked hard, but I see it. Are we progressing or regressing in our world? I see my childhood in every child I go in this world who are suffering in conflict, in deprivation, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, and now in Palestine, where these children are not allowed to grow up. I was able to grow up and to suffer the pain. When you ask a Palestinian child now, what would you like to be in the future? To be a medical doctor, engineer, or a lawyer, or a teacher? They say, we are not allowed to grow up. They are killed in their childhood. So the childhood to be killed. But who are the children? The children are the life. They are the hope. They are the future. And that's what we want to save and to work towards. So I see my children, my daughters who were killed, in every Palestinian child, in every child in this world, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in any part of the world. I don't accept it. And I said it. If I could know my daughters were the last to sacrifice in the way to peace between Palestinians and Israelis, then I will accept it. They were not the last. They were just numbers. That's why I will never rest. I will never relax till I see their holy souls and noble blood injected into a vein of hope in saving lives, in giving life to others, and to speak out and not to be silent.
How do you do it? One of my very best friends is an Afghan who was born and grew up in a refugee camp in Pakistan, and he and we speak regularly, and he tells me that what's happening in Palestine right now, these refugees, 2 million people suffering day by day, it eats him up internally. He cannot look at it anymore because he starts to tremble because it hurts so much. And he wasn't even in Palestine, but he was in Pakistan. And how do you carry on, and how do you keep the hope that this tragedy will transform into peace?
No, even your friend, the Afghani, because you don't need to be in Gaza or in Palestine to see it. You need to feel it. We need to reflect on it. And that's what happened with him. He experienced it in Afghanistan. He is a refugee. He knows the meaning of being a refugee. And that's the impact of war. The impact of war is not the direct impact, the casualties, the invisible cause of the war. And that's why we need to show compassion to the suffering of the people. I get hope from what I see in our world. Nothing is impossible in life. This is important. I know the situation is difficult, but still the patient is not dead. The patient is in the intensive care unit, but we need to ask, how can we revive hope? We need to revive hope by understanding the root causes of the problems, not to focus on the symptoms of the disease. The disease is there, which is the cancer, which is the occupation, and we need to speak as a Palestinian nation and the Israeli people there. who are living and deserve the right to live as a free, side by side, as equal, and the dignity of the Palestinians is equal to the dignity of anyone on earth, and the freedom of the Palestinians also. Freedom must not stop at the borders of the Palestinians. We are people like others. We are people with hopes, with the plans, with the dreams, and we are succeeding as people in Palestine. No nation has been tested as we have been tested as Palestinians from 1948, even before we experienced the Nakba. And that's why we feel the compassion and the pain of the refugees in our world. That's where I see the hope. We need to have order in our world, and we need to have accurate diagnosis. The disease and the big elephant, it's the occupation and colonization of the Palestinians and the Palestinian land. And we, as Palestinians, we don't want to delete anyone. We don't want to eradicate anyone. We want to be added, to be recognized as equal to anyone, and to live as a free nation. The most precious thing in the universe is the freedom and the human being. And we as Palestinians, we are tested in our freedom on daily basis. You can't decide. You live in Japan. Tomorrow, if you want to leave, to go back to Switzerland, immediately book your flight. For me, as Palestinians, I can't decide when to go and how to go. And the most precious thing also is the human beings, the human Palestinians. They are tested till now. You see, by this atrocities, which is the genocide against the humanity. Till now, more than 22,000 Palestinians are killed, the majority of whom are children and women, because Gaza Strip, the population is about 2.3 million Palestinians. 50% are children, and 20% to 25% are women in their reproductive age. And this is reflected in the number of those who were killed. More than 22,000 are killed. 7,000 are unknown, are under the rubble. You don't know. Dissolved bodies, children, women. 24,000 are orphans. What are we going to say to them? And that's what is happening. Gaza Strip was described before October 7 as a hell. Now Gaza Strip is a ghost, homeless, jobless, lifeless, waterless, foodless, darkness, lightless. What else? It's polluted. Everything in Gaza Strip, the only thing which is remaining is the air. Even the air is polluted. The air is polluted with white phosphorus. I appeal to everyone. How can they tolerate to hear it? How can they tolerate to see what is happening and not to feel angry in a positive way, to take action, to say, stop this genocide. War has to be prevented, not to be watched, and to speak about it or to document it. And we want to say for once, and to listen to the Palestinians for once, that Palestinian people and are equal to others and deserve the freedom, and to advocate for the freedom, because the Palestinians' freedom, dignity, future, rights, equality, and life is linked to the Israelis. Dignity, freedom, they are not safe and secure as long as Palestinians are not. So it's time to advocate for equality, justice, freedom for all.
So I love hearing that, but how you describe the very end, because I think you're describing a way out. But let me ask you this, because it makes me angry. It makes me very angry, and it makes a lot of people angry seeing what's happening. But what the other side, and the other side, I don't mean the Israelis, the other side, I mean the people who want to do war to solve their problem. The people who want to do war, what they do is they turn this around. They say, look, these people are angry. They hate us. They are anti-Semites. That's the chain of thought. How can we use the anger without hate to break through this chain and do what you said, link the security of the two peoples together so that we can defeat the people who want to do war?
Thank you for this question. We need to feel angry, and anger is different from hatred. Anger, it can be negative and positive anger. Positive anger, when I see something wrong and I take action to stop it. And that's what we need. We need the positive anger, not the destructive anger. And hatred is completely different. Hatred, since I started, even what happened, the people were expecting me to be full of hatred, sinking in hatred. I said, why do they want me? Maybe I have the right to hate, but I started to learn about hatred. And that's mostly my research these days. I said, why do they want me to be sick with this disease called hatred? And that's my definition of hatred. Hatred is an individual or community contagious and destructive disease, which is the result of exposure, and it happens in clusters. Hatred for me, now, it's a poison. It's a fire which burns the one who is afflicted with it. And if I am afflicted with this disease called hatred, I am collapsed, I am destroyed, I am heavy, I can't move. And the responsibility is still in front of me. I want, from day one, when I saw my daughters killed, I swore to God and to my daughters, I will never give up. I will never forget. I will never rest till one day I meet them with the big gift. It's the justice for them, and that their holy souls and noble blood wasn't waste. It made a difference in others' lives. In order to achieve this, it's not with hatred. I know the wound is big and the scar is large, but I need to be healthy physically, mentally, spiritually. And as Einstein said, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep balanced, we must keep moving. I kept moving faster, stronger, more determined, not to give up, and to take this responsibility.
How do you do it internally? What do you tell yourself when you think of the death of your daughters and of your family to prevent hate, from wanting the other side to suffer the same, from wanting to kill others? How do you prevent that from happening to yourself?
Because I believe my daughters were killed, and in every bad thing, there is something positive. And that's what I learned. Even what happened now, October 7th, it's a silver lining opportunity to increase awareness about what is happening, where some people in this world, they thought they can cross the Palestinian issue, they can bypass it. It came up now as a priority and as a regional and the global issue. The world is not safe as this situation is continuing. So it's the top agenda, not to be put aside. And that's what is happening now. And also it exposed the bias, the double standards, the indifference, and the complicit Western world with what is happening now. That is bias. If they believe it's a test to the international community, we need to have order in this world. And the order is based on the international law, on the United Nations, the human rights conventions. If we believe in these values, we need to walk the talk, not in a selective way, in a biased way. That's why we have disorder in this world. So I believe in that, and nothing is impossible. And when my daughters were killed, I asked myself, because I was there with them, why I was saved. Seconds after I left my daughter's room, the first shell came. I realized there is something good coming out of this, a tragedy. And it's up to us. Life is what we make it. Always has been, always will be. It's up to us. Where do we want and how to transform the tragedies into opportunities? Even in the most dark time, there is a glimpse of hope and light, and the dawn will come one day. So it's important for us to understand it. So I said, this tragedy has to be invested for good. And once it was broadcasted live, the second day was announced unilateral ceasefire by the Israeli Prime Minister. When he saw me, and the video was screened, and this is the Palestinian doctor, this is his daughters. So, but no one should be killed in order to save. And that's what we need. And also, can I return them back if I want to be afflicted with hatred, with anger, with this poison called hatred, to be a victim of hatred as I am a victim of the killing of my daughters. And I don't want to be a victim more than once. I say to people, don't accept to be a victim more than once. And being a victim is a stigma.
Yes.
You need to survive. You need to lead and to move forward. And that's what I said. Even revenge is not helpful. Revenge, anyone who is opting for revenge, he has to dig two graves. And that's what we need. But we need accountability. We need accountability because anyone who is doing anything should be accountable to their actions. Anyone, once there is no accountability, people will continue to misbehave. Accountability is vital in our world to have order. And that's why we need justice about our all to learn from what is happening. Other than that, we live in disorder based on power, and I can do anything. That's why you see some countries in this world, because they control the world based not on the human power, the military power. And this should not be the guide to move in our world.
Maybe let's take this to a more political level. So what would be what's your vision? How can we get out of this cycle? Because it is obviously a cycle of violence, right? One side doing harm to the other, and then you do this again and again and again. And both sides, I mean, the militants on both sides, they want to kill each other, right? How do we get out of this? Would you want a two-state solution? Would you want a one-state solution? Politically, what do you think would be a feasible way to bring these two peoples together and live in peace among their neighbors?
So you ask this question, what do I want? As if I have the choice. And you give, which is important, because I have been asked, and this question should be asked to the occupier. And when we speak about two sides, it's important to have an analysis of it. Two sides, yes, we have two sides, but one side is occupier, one side is occupied. One side is oppressor, and the other side is oppressed. And that's what we need, the accurate diagnosis that helps us to move forward, because Jesus said, seek the truth, and the truth sets you free. And we all want to be free because the truth is the right diagnosis. And once we have the right diagnosis, we can set up the right treatment. So we need to talk about the Palestinian people and the Israeli people who deserve the right to live as equal, as a free, side by side. And we have to have order in this world. And we have the international resolutions. We need to go, to listen to the world. Why do we have this international system in the world? In order to endorse it, not in a selective or biased way, in the right way. And that's the test to the world. Now, I believe the only way to move forward, to acknowledge the rights of all equally, and to end the occupation. And the solution to this, ask the Israelis. I ask the Israelis, what do you want to live? Do you want one state or two-state solution? Two-state solution based on the international resolutions, the United Nations resolutions, within the borders of 1967, East Jerusalem as the capital, and to find a way to the right of the return. And that's what we have in the occupied Palestinian territories. And even I ask the Israelis, can you define your borders? It's the only country in the world without well-defined borders. You live in Japan, it has defined borders. You are from Switzerland, you have well-defined borders. And anyone later on who is going to cross the borders is violating your rights and your country. But till now, Israel has the only country in the world without well-defined borders. And that's what we need because of the impunity and the support by the Western countries, in particular the United States. So I believe the only way, either two-state solution, and it's up to the occupier who has the power and the international community to endorse these international resolutions, either two-state solution or one-state solution with equal citizenship rights.
Yeah.
And we can do it, but not the status quo.
I am afraid that what the occupier wants is defined borders without the people that it doesn't want. So, and I think that's the whole point right now.
Of the international community, what will be the role of the international community? So tomorrow, God forbid, any other country to go to the next country and to say, I take you away, and there is a precedent case.
Yes.
To say Israel did it, so I have to do it. Do we live in jungle? Do we need to have order in our world or not?
The unfortunate thing is that the international community, it doesn't work the way it should, and hypocrisy is baked into the system. We see the double standards all the time. If we just remember the last 2 years, how we were told that the Russians are committing a genocide on the Ukrainians and how that was decried for 2 years. And now the same media basically refuses to use the genocide word when it comes to what's happening to Palestine, although already more civilians have been killed in Palestine during 2 months than during the war in Ukraine. Civilians have been killed. There is a clear double standard, and we cannot get rid of it because at the end of the day, it's power that defines what countries do, not morals.
Which power? When we speak about the power, which power? Is it the military power? Is it the financial materialized war, or the human rights and the values we believe? How can you convince the international community about the human values? If we are violating, if these countries, what we call it, the 5 V's, the vetoes, the United States and others, they don't walk the talk. They only talk about these values in a selective way and in a biased way. That's why we need a reform in our world. The world is dynamic. Is it changing? The United Nations, it has been established in 1945 after World War II. And the world now is changed. Everything is changed. And we live in a world that is dynamic, and even everything is weaponized. Even human rights is weaponized. So we need to pause, to understand where are we going, and we need to start to process, and also the public to speak out. It's time. It's time to humanize, not to politicize.
I think that's the best way forward, because the public does have power. We can see that. And the tragedy that we are witnessing, the tragedy of being human, is that we keep repeating the same stupid errors generation after generation. And I know that you prepared pictures just to show the repetition of the madness that we are going through, killing our own kind. Can you maybe explain that?
Yeah, and you see it because history repeats itself, and the same procedure. And, when the United States invaded Iraq and they formed a coalition of 30 countries within a short period of time to invade country, under the justification of mass destructive weapons, they destroyed a country. They killed hundreds of thousands of children and people, starvation. And it's the same procedure. You see, this is in Iraq. This is in Gaza by the American weapons. When we see it, the destruction. And what is happening? This is the destruction in Iraq. No difference between the destruction in Gaza Strip. It's the same. These even, you see, the Iraqi people who were kidnapped, I consider it kidnapping, and this is the Palestinian kidnapped hostages. And when we see it, imagine these are the newborn babies. What did they do? Even to be disconnected from the incubators. These are the children. It's about children, how the world can tolerate what is happening. When we speak about it, what do you think? Children, really, and that's what I want. How these political leaders in our world, can they sleep? These days, in the holy days, with the Christmas, where I am proud, where Jesus, peace be upon him, he suffered and he came to save lives. We call it the Christ at the checkpoint. I visit the churches, and we are proud as Palestinians that Christ is, Jesus is a Palestinian. In these holy days, can we feel angry? And that's what we want, to feel angry when we see this, to say no, stop the bloodshed, cease fire now, and to use it as an opportunity. What happened October 7 to be an opportunity to say no to military means it will never put an end to any conflict. It widens the gap. It increases the bloodshed, hatred, animosity, violence, suffering, and most important, more extremism.
You know, Dr. Abuelaish, like Jesus is a wonderful example because he was the prime pacifist of his time. He's the man who understood that an eye for an eye will not help anyone. He's the one who rejected violence per se and said, stop it. And 2,000 years later, we still use violence. And it never occurred to me that Jesus was not only Jewish, Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. That he even combines this. The thing that then the other side, the people who want to use violence, what they say is, don't be so naive. Pacifism doesn't work. You will be killed. But what they don't understand is that their violence also doesn't work. 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years of violence for violence, and they still keep claiming that their approach works better than pacifism. This is madness. It's absolute madness, and I don't know how to escape it.
But also, I agree with you, because I remember it when I sent my daughter Bisan at the age of 14 to peace camp to meet different kinds of people. And it was, peace camp for young women, teenagers. And I said, I found it. It's for young women because I believe, personally, this world can't be a stable, safe, secure, and sustainable world without women's involvement and participation. It's time for women to take a lead and to be sitting at the table in decision making, because most of the wars are waged by whom? Wars are waged by men. And who is paying the major price? Women and the children. But who are women? Women are the ones who are giving life. Women are the ones who are nurturing life. So it's time for women to take a lead. They are the incubator. They are protective. She said at that time, she learned to meet violence with violence doesn't solve any problem. There is an alternative way. So negative is not managed with negative. Negative, we need something positive. Disease is not managed with the disease.
I used to think that more women in politics will be one way of solving the problem, until I understood that no, the same disease that men carry in them, women carry it too. Ursula von der Leyen, the actions of Madeleine Albright, Hillary Clinton, these are horrible people who do horrible things for really twisted ends. So unfortunately, we cannot cure us humans by just empowering more women. We also need to empower the right women with the right ideas and not the wrong
No, I
ones.
agree with you. We need to empower women by educating even women. It's not only by involvement in politics, because they raise children to be human, to behave as a human, to breastfeed them with tolerance, with kindness, with resilience. Because some people in this world, they think kindness, tolerance, resilience are signs of weakness. And they don't understand that it needs a lot of courage and motivation than being rude with others and being angry. Sometimes we think when you are silent, it's a weakness. Silence is stronger than talking. And that's what we need, the people. I see it even in academia. Academic education should have a human, healthy, peaceful impact. Not only we are teaching math and science, we teach science in order to serve and to help our humanity, to bridge between people, to bring them together as medicine. Medicine, when I treat a patient, or at work, when I used to work at the hospital in Israel or even in Canada, you can go to any hospital, different patients, different backgrounds, different names, different ethnicities, different religions, but all are treated equally. So why not to treat them equally outside the borders of the hospitals? Do we need to be sick in order to recognize my humanity and to treat me equally as others? We are equal and we are free from day one when we are born. So we need to run a free life and equal life outside. All of this suffering in this world is man-made. It's not from God. It's man-made. And that's the hope. I see the hope because it's man-made. How can we as people to unmade it? By not accepting it, by taking action, not to watch it, because silence in times of injustice is injustice. And some people, they think they are far from risk. I say no. You are afflicted by it, either directly or indirectly. When there is a fire far from you, you need to give hand, because the fire may extend to you one day. So it's important. Think of others. Give hand to others. I succeeded in my life, but I will never forget from where did I come. There are many people in this world who are still in the middle of the ocean, struggling. How can I give hand to them? And that's what we need, to think and to behave. That's the legacy we want to inherit and to leave behind.
Yes. And every action, how much ever small it may be on an individual level, if they come together, they make an ocean. So
yeah, and you know, believe me, we need to listen to our children. We need to listen to our students. They are smart. They are not poisoned. I learned from my children. My daughter Bisan, as you described it now, she said, everything starts small, then becomes big. Everything starts in one place and goes in different directions. So everything starts by 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. You see, now we are running this interview. You and me now, we don't know where it will spread, but we started it. And that's what I say to people. Start by yourself, take responsibility. The biggest challenge in our world is individual responsibility, and we all are accountable and responsible. Don't wait for others. Don't wait for others. Don't accept to be among the audience. see yourself and not to underestimate your action. A
Yes.
small act makes a huge difference in others' lives. And I remember the story of the starfish. When a heavy tide threw hundreds of starfish, she was a young girl. She passed and she saw the hundreds of starfish. She started to throw them one by one back to the sea. And the man came and looked at the girl and said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I am saving lives." He was surprised and said, "But there are hundreds. It's not going to make any difference." And she was confident and she believed in her action. And she taught him a lesson with a role model, with example. When she caught one and threw it to the water and said, it made a difference to that one. So I say to everyone, what will be your starfish to make a difference in others' lives and in our world?
Dr. Abuelaish, those are beautiful words, and I would like to close the interview with this. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, my dear. And wish all of the audience a happy new year. I hope 2024 to be a year of humanity, of wisdom, of peace, and lives to all.